That's just a fact over the last 5 years. That may be in part recession driven. So what I was interested in, I thought, let's just pull out China here. And what it showed me was that of the 16 million tons of global growth in meat demand, meat consumption over the last 5 years, 10 of that was in China. And all I'm saying to the meat traders I work around the world is, don't we think we've got a lot of eggs in the Chinese basket? If they stumble, if they stutter, I mean, luckily, very, very recently, they seem to be just picking up a little. But, we really rely on that sucking noise, which is China, 1.3 billion people, sucking demand for meat globally. We've got to watch that. And also, back to, we've got to know the market. Okay. So are Chinese like us? Do you think that, Mr. Wang of Nanjing, that if he wakes up in, next year, in 2013, just as his family household income flips over into $5,000 US dollars for the family, do you think he suddenly says Saturday morning as he wakes up, funny, I fancy a ribeye steak? I don't think it's quite like that. So here I am, I'm often in China, and I bought 1,001 favorite family recipes, if you translate that into the Mandarin. And I'm sad enough, they had a picture of each of the major, of all the dishes, 1,001 dishes. How many beef dishes in the 1,001 favorite family recipes?
10, 20.
Yeah, it was less than 10. It was 7. How many lamb? Wow. 2. There you go. Close to 10 out of 1,001 were classic red meats. Now that is southern. This is Nanjing, is sort of southern coastal China, but that's where a lot of the income is. It'll be higher in Beijing. So I'm saying you've really, really got to understand those food cultures. You really have to do that. When I was in Tesco recently in Jiangmen, which is in the Pearl Delta area of southern China, I mean, this is Tesco specials, and it says such a lot about it. It just explains the diet. What's it about? Bottom right, fish. Bottom left, fish. It's chicken, it's pork, and it's vegetables. These are the staples. And what's interesting about food and food habits is we change, but we change very, very slowly. We change slowly. Do they have supermarkets? Well, of course, here's Carrefour in Nanjing. And increasingly it's becoming modern, which is great for us because actually for premium meat products which are exported to these emerging markets, then we must sell them through supermarkets because the traditional market's not good enough. Although that's where most of the markets, most of the meat is sold. Here's me, I can't remember where, and I don't know what I'm doing with my hands, but those ladies.
I look pleased.
Yeah, okay. They look pleased. And again. Yeah. Here we go. And so it's understanding those markets. What's the trachea for? Why would you sell feet? Or, here we've got this was Walmart in the live turtle section of the meat department. And you could buy turtles 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, male, female, wild farmed. And they ranged in price from 20 yuan per kg to 120. And I'm saying to the meat industry, you need to know what that's about, because that's your total market somewhere or another. And, which one would you buy? The black ones or the white ones? And, if you say if there was any Chinese, it could be students, they'd immediately say, black ones. They're the real premium ones. What's that about? I'm not sure, but you need to know. You need to know. 10 minutes. And I was recently in West China, and I loved Phoebe, my translator. We were having a beer, and she said, I'll go and get some snacks. And she came back with these, and she said, I'm not sure if you'll like these. And I said, yeah, you're right there, honey. But then she said, because they may be a little spicy for you. I said, that's not the point. and then when I said, just quick, I shouldn't go on, but I said, you can't buy those in Tesco's in the UK. And she looked sort of sympathetic. She says, what a pity. So there we go. It's a different culture. You've got to understand it. What's that? I'm never sure. It all looks surprisingly phallic. I don't know what it is. But it's something as basic as understanding. Look at our kitchens. Look at a Chinese kitchen. This is the same. This kitchen would be multiplied 400 million times in China. And what do they have? They'll have a rice, an electric rice preparer, and in 2 rings. Now you're not going to put a nice roast in the oven there because they don't have an oven. So what do they... And whereas we... Think of our culture with food. I mean, we're not quite as bad as North Americans, but we get a big plate. And we put in a piece of meat in the middle. Meat. A very big piece. And then we dot round it little bits of stuff to make it look decent. And that's mine. Not yours, it's mine. And I'm going to finish it all, because of the starving in Africa. Not that would help them. Is that what they do in China? No. There'll be 8 dishes. They're all shared. You never finish. There's a bit of this, a bit of that. You've got to have a balance between big sizes and little sizes, of colours, of sweet and sour, etc. It's way more sophisticated than this, and we have to understand that, or we can't get into those markets. So here we are now to Malaysia. I was just marking a PhD the other day, as you do. This was, and it was a Muslim woman doing a PhD on fresh food retailing in Malaysia. And I was sort of intrigued with this. Main ways of cooking beef, okay? Stir-fried soup, red-green curry, roasted, so little tiny pieces roasted, boiled with soy sauce, rendang. And I'm looking at that and saying, I wonder if you'd value the front or the back of the animal. Would you know the front or the back of the animal? Actually, if there's a preference, it's for the front, because it's got a little bit more fat there. It's shaved thin, covered in a delicious sauce. Would you know if it was grain-fed or grass-fed? No. So hang on. We've got to rethink how we market our products here. And what's the most concern in Malaysia for the Muslim shopper? Confidence in the halal process. Their belief was, in this survey, was that if it came from a supermarket, it was probably dodgy halal. On the other hand, if you bought it from the traditional butcher, it would be the real McCoy. So, there are challenges. 5 minutes, I understand. I know. Dear Lord. So, what I'm saying for you guys, if I look internationally at beef prices and lamb prices, say it's brilliant. You are unequivocally in the premium end of the market. But that brings huge marketing responsibilities. Because I'm saying, just imagine Mr. Wang again. You're saying, he's looking at your beef and your lamb, which is double the price per unit of the next meat down, which is pork. And he said, I'm willing to pay twice as much per portion for your beef and lamb than I do for pork and other white meats because. What's the because? You tell me what the because. Tell me what it is. Because it's got to be something to do with taste, tenderness, juiciness, consistency, consumer friendliness, social attributes, animal welfare, religion, and more particularly, I think, the compelling product story. Must be about that. Or why would I pay twice as much? You tell me why. And the other thing, back to, you picked you because I know you're emerging market. The other thing you've got to watch with emerging markets is this is what food price inflation, food price indices look like through time. So if you'd gone to, when I went to Canada in 1975, between 1975 and 1996, global food prices were relatively stable. And what's gone wrong? Wrong or right, it could be right for you guys. Now it's all over the map. What do you think is going to happen to global food prices over the next 8 years? Fun? More volatile. And maybe a little higher. Brilliant for you in many respects, although there's lots of risk because they are volatile. But what are the implications for these emerging markets? Where, what proportion of our income do we spend on food? Answer, 12%. Okay, what about in, say, the Philippines? 50% of their income is spent on food. What happens in the Philippines if the price of rice doubles? Anarchy. There's anarchy, social unrest, governments change. Because a lot of that's going to happen over the next 6, 7, 8 years, I would suggest. And if staple food prices do double, and they will from time to time, then they'll be corrected, then those products which are sort of nice to have don't get bought. You just focus on better buy the rice, better buy the wheat, better buy the flour, better buy the staples. So, we've got to watch it. That's all. I haven't got time for that one. But it's not all about, moving on here, 3 minutes, it's not all about low price, as I say. In our own market, there's been some resilience to these more esoteric elements that relate to ethics, sustainability, provenance, and heritage, etc. Farmers often say to me, yeah, but who's going to pay for that? So the question I would ask you is the consumer, is the shopper willing to pay for greater sustainability, for more animal welfare friendly, for greater heritage? And they say yes, and the answer is no. No. They simply expect it. They expect it. And particularly if you're a premium, and you're a premium, beef and lamb, premium, you have to be ticking those boxes and doing more than ticking them. They expect it of you. That's part and parcel. That's the ticket to enter premium markets, that you've got to be green and sustainable, etc. That's a fact. And I see this around the world, whether, here we are in the US with Safeway, natural raised without, we're good at this, raised without antibiotics, no added hormones. I mean, we don't think twice about it. I mean, in Australia and the US, they still haven't got the story on hormones. Here we go. And we get this sort of hierarchy where, again, this is Australia, but it could be Holland. Everything legal and safe, good for me and my family, back to nature and kind to others. This is, remember, 101, marketing, consumer behavior, Maslow's hierarchy. Yeah, we're moving our way up that pyramid. Let's go on. What about traceability? We've learned, we know about this, and we should be world leaders at it. I mean, there are problems around the world with regard to food safety, and we just cannot say we're number 2 in food safety. We have to lead in that. What happens if there is a problem? I was in Calgary 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, and there they had an E. coli problem. And here they are, Alberta beef. They fancy their chances of being right at the top end here. And look at what they've got, Alberta beef reputation. Oh, dear Lord. And, excuse me. And so let me just finish here. If I've got, am I supposed to finish it?
Keep going, you're all right.
Okay. So, okay, for red meat, taste, tenderness, smell is paramount. But if you're this big premium, what about the story? And when it comes to communicating the story to the customer, to the consumer, who is the hero? Who's the heroine? Is it the country? Is it England? Is it Scotland? Is it Wales for lamb? Is it the local area production? Is it the processor? Is it the farmer, the individual farmer? Is it the production process? Is it the product? Is it the animals? Is it the ingredients? Is it the heritage, the tradition, the terroir? Let's sort of use wine language here. Is it all of the above? And I think in history we haven't been good at creating stories, and we all know that old advertising adage that, you don't sell the steak, you sell the sizzle. It's about the sizzle. We have to be better at selling the sizzle. And I think we need to learn a lot more of this. Because, last one here, from a consumer perspective, if you think about it now, let's be honest, brutally honest, and think globally from a consumer perspective, what are we famous for? I asked that question. So, for example, Germany, I think, is famous for engineering. If you say you've got a German car, people don't say, oh, hard luck. Okay, brilliant, you've got a German car. And what's their best known food? Sausage, beer, sauerkraut. If you say, let's go out tonight in London, yeah, good idea. What do you fancy? They said, a German meal. Say, oh, couldn't we have Italian? So what's Italy famous for? Racing cars and fashion. But Italy has this wonderful position internationally that if you say, what's Italy famous for in food, people rattle off a long list. And they don't just say cheese, they'll say Parmigiano Reggiano. They don't just say ham, they'll say Parma ham. Pasta, they'll give you individual pastas. Olive oil, they're famous for that, yet Spain is a bigger producer. And so it goes on. What's England famous for? Let's be brutally honest. When I say royalty, I include Beckham. I mean, when I'm in China and say, what do you know about England? They'll say, haven't you got a queen, Princess Di and Beckham? That does it, that's it. What about Scotland? I'm saying, well, what are we famous for from a consumer point of view? I'm not sure. New Zealand, scenery, maybe milk powder. So I think that's the challenge for us from an export point of view, that there's some iconic Scottish whiskey, for example, Scottish whiskey, brilliant. But relatively few things around the world, we're doing modestly well in exports. But we need that sort of consumer orientation, more stories linked to our food products. And I think that's the essence, actually, from a meat point of view. So, finishing here, global demand for all meats. Look, come on, let's be up about this. It looks rosy. In every market, I'm saying, well, watch out for super competitive chicken, fish, aquaculture, pork and low-cost producing countries, whether it be Brazil, Chile, Vietnam, whatever it is. You've got to really understand that food culture in emerging markets. But don't forget where the guys who've got the deep pockets. That's still in the US, it's still in Canada, it's still in Europe, for goodness sake, will continue to be rich. Beef, lamb are premium meats, and the premium must be earned. People won't just automatically pay double. They want to know what they're paying. They want to pay more for more. And remind me, what's our point of difference on export markets? I mean, excuse me again, why should we buy the English one, the Scottish one, etc.? Could you just tell me I'm about to pay a premium? And we need to align the story. We want the country, region, species, industry sector, company brand. It has to be aligned. A consistent story. And then finally, of course, we've got to be number one in supply chain integrity. That's in terms of traceability, that's in terms of safety, etc. We must lead in this area. And I think that will do me. Thank you.